Hello, everyone. This is Reddit 9 to 5, and I'm bringing you a story from Malicious Compliance, where I'll do what you say, but you're not going to like the result. The title of the first story is called Must Give 48-Hour Notice by Rum Bun Bun. I've moved several times for my husband's career, so I haven't really had a career of my own, just a series of jobs. Some were great, some were cruddy. This happened at one of the cruddy places where I worked as a lowly customer service rep. I was late 40s, very dependable, and my manager, Anne, called me her ideal employee. Never had any customer complaints, never tardy, sick once in 3 years, submitted many time and money saving ideas, always worked late when asked. I worked 32 hours a week, Monday through Thursday, and I was typically the one asked to work late since everyone else was full time and no overtime was involved if I was working a few extra hours. I was having migraines and my doctor could see me the next afternoon. I asked Anne if I could leave 2 hours early the next day to go to the doctor. She said work was slow that week and no one was off, so yes. But since I was giving less than 48 hours notice, it was counted as unexcused and I would get a written warning. I said that I was giving 24 hours notice and we were slow and fully staffed, so I just didn't get why there would be a warning. 4 warnings in 6 months and you were terminated. They didn't care if you had a doctor's excuse. Tardies were a warning, calling in sick, returning late from lunch. It was not difficult to get 4 in 6 months. Anne said that it was a matter of her having to shift the schedule around. It was inconsiderate to not plan ahead, and she didn't want to set precedent and be taken advantage of. I went to the appointment, got the warning, and was ticked off about it. But I decided I would be happy to comply with their petty policy in my own malicious way. I didn't have to wait very long. A couple of weeks later, Anne came to me an hour before closing and said she had a stack of orders that came in via Amazon, and they had to get done that day. The phones had been busy, so the reps who normally entered orders didn't get to them. Could I stay to put them in? I said I really had no other plans, but I'd been thinking about what she said about giving 48 hours notice when asking someone to change their schedule. And she was right. It does lead to them taking advantage of you. So I would be willing to stay late 2 days from now, but I can no longer stay late on such short notice. But I didn't know that I would need you until just now. Oh, I totally understand. It's like when I was having migraines and needed to get the doctor as soon as possible. I think I deserve the same consideration that you deserve. If you give me 48 hours notice, I'm happy to stay. She was speechless. She had to pay someone else overtime to stay. A couple days later, she thought she could get back at me when she told me that I could not remain part time and would have to start working Fridays the following week. I calmly told her that the following Thursday would be my last day then. By that afternoon, she changed her mind and I could stay on my current schedule. Hey, OP, not gonna lie, that was a pretty boss move you pulled. Especially with how effortlessly you threw your boss's logic right back in her face. You can't screw over your employees like that and still expect them to do favors for you. Also, can we all just appreciate how stupid the logic is for having 48 hours notice for sick time? Like, I'm gonna know 48 hours ahead of time when I'm gonna be puking my guts out. It's absolutely ridiculous, and they totally deserve to get called out on it. And on to the next story. The next story is called Thank You for Your Input, Karen, or How I Did Exactly What the HR Lady Told Me to, by SureFindWhatever67. Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to point out that I've created a new Reddit account just so that I could post this story. I didn't want to use my regular account, as I would like to stay anonymous as possible, and my post history plus this story would make that difficult. Second, just so you know, English is not my first language, so please excuse me if there are any mistakes. And lastly, this story happened earlier this year, but the real consequences came last week. That's why I've decided to share it now. The context: I, 35-year-old female, live in a big city in Western Europe. After graduating college, I was hired as an office assistant in a big company. Let's call it Happy Place. I did my last internship as a student there, and it went so well, I was hired just a few weeks after getting my master's degree. Over the next 10 years, I worked my way up from assistant to office manager to head of one of the biggest departments. I was not paid a lot of money, but it was above average and the benefits were great. But the main reason I stayed for so long was because of the people that worked there. Over the years, I've made quite a few friends there, and by the year 2020, I was one of the most experienced people working in the happy place. My colleagues often came to me for advice on how to do this, that, and I had a great relationship with one of the big bosses. And the cherry on top was that I had one of the best bosses someone could hope for. Let's call her Maggie. Maggie was 10 years older than me, and she was Wonder Woman. She was nice, professional, cool, helpful, and has a heart of gold. I've worked with her during my whole time at Happy Place. In the last 4 years, she was my direct supervisor. I loved her. Then, in 2020, a few things happened almost at the same time, and over the course of 6 months, Happy Place turned into Sad Place. First, the company hired a new HR lady, Karen. She was the worst. She treated everyone below her level of responsibilities, which was pretty much 99% of the staff, as if they were lesser people, talked down to everyone, and constantly made changes in the HR policies. She implemented quite a few new rules, which led to us losing some of the benefits that we liked, like free lunches, paid time off to go to the doctor's office during office hours, etc. But the CEO of the company trusted her for some reason, and soon he stopped taking meetings with the staff, making Karen the only person who could make decisions regarding the staff, which meant that no one could actually complain about her, and we slowly started to feel helpless. Second, Maggie was promoted to a different field, the one she actually wanted to work in, so I can't stay mad at her for leaving. And she got replaced by Susan as my new supervisor. Susan was cool, but she was my age and with less experience, which did not make much sense. So, even though on paper she was the one in charge, I was the one constantly explaining to her how things worked and what needed to be done, while she took the credit. And lastly, COVID. Our line of work was highly impacted by the pandemic, so for the whole year of 2020, I was working under an enormous amount of stress. Taking almost no vacation time, doing my job and some of Susan's job. At some point, she had to go on medical leave, and some of my coworkers' jobs, as some colleagues cracked under the tension and quit. But no one got hired to replace them. But despite all the hard work, I did not receive any pandemic related bonus, which was weird because some of my coworkers let it slip that they got a €1,000 bonus for achievements during the pandemic. The compliance. So, given all the events of 2020, in January 2021, I've decided that enough is enough. When it was time for my annual review, I've decided that I would negotiate better conditions for myself. Because as much as I love my job and the people I worked for, I couldn't keep working for so much for so little. As Susan was still on medical leave, Karen was the one who did my annual review, despite the fact that I've only met her a few times and we've never directly worked together. In preparation for the meeting, I've made a list of things that I've been putting up with and a list of reasons why I should get a slight pay bump. I was asking for a 15% pay increase, but I was happy to accept a 10%. It was not about the money, it was about knowing that there was at least a chance that management valued me as an employee, and that I was not just some sucker who did so much for not even a thank you. After making my case to Karen and carefully explaining to her what my job was and what I was actually doing, I asked her the dreaded question. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "OP, I appreciate everything you've been doing for the company, and we value you as an employee. But your responsibilities and your abilities are not worth that much." I was speechless. I admit I was so angry and hurt that I felt tears coming up to my eyes. But I took a breath, calmed myself, and said, "Thank you for your input, Karen, but I cannot keep working in these conditions. It's not worth it." Karen rolled her eyes and replied, "Then you can quit, but I will be sorry to see you go." And quit I did. You see, there are two things that Karen did not know. First, as explained, I was a highly valued employee with a great reputation and over 10 years of experience in the field. In our field, reputation is important, and for the last 2 years, I've been receiving job offers from competitors. I always refused because I loved working for the happy place. But since the events of 2020, I started taking interviews, checking what else was out there. And just before my meeting with Karen, I did an interview with Cool Company, who offered me a 60% raise to do the same job as I did for the happy place. Second, remember how I said I took almost no vacation days in 2020? So by January of 2021, I had over 2 months of paid leave available. I checked with the HR, not Karen, the week before my annual review, and they confirmed to me in writing that I was free to take my vacation days whenever I wanted. So I did exactly what Karen told me to do. I quit. I put my 2 months' notice and took my 2 months' vacation, which meant that I came to work for only one day to clean out my office and say goodbye before leaving for good. I felt bad because I left so many of my colleagues in a really bad position since they now had to do my job. But they all assured me that they understood and they would have done the same. After my 2 months paid vacation, I started working at Cool Company and I've been there ever since. The aftermath. I've kept in touch with a few friends from Happy Place and they regularly informed me what was going on over there. It seemed that me quitting was the push that many of my coworkers needed to also make the final leap and quit. As I said, the conditions went from great to bad ever since Karen took office. Also, the fact that I quit so abruptly got the attention of the CEO, as we had a good relationship. He asked Maggie, who was aware of the whole story with Karen about it, and she told him the truth. About me not getting the COVID bonus, about Karen speaking down to staff members, and about her telling me to quit if I wanted to. The CEO finally opened his eyes and launched an investigation into Karen's actions. He personally did interviews with some staff members and heard stories about her from the people in many different departments. He also investigated the COVID bonus story, and it turns out she only gave the COVID bonus to her friends from different departments and a very generous one to herself. Plus, since I've quit, no one was actually able to do my job, and the fact that Karen was responsible for me leaving made her responsible for the consequences. So, after reviewing everything, the CEO decided to terminate Karen's contract. Rumor has it that the whole staff of Happy Place celebrated the joyous occasion. The cherry on top. Last week, my boss at the Cool Company walked into my office and said, OP, you know Jen from HR is retiring soon, right? We did interviews to replace her, and one of the candidates is Karen. She seems competent, but asks for quite a lot of money. You and her work together, right? What's she like? Do you think she deserves to be paid more than we initially offered? I said, Boss, do you have a few minutes? Great, let me tell you a story. After hearing my very honest opinion of Karen, Bossman laughed and said, Okay, good to know. I think we can tell her that she's not quite the right fit for us. Thanks, OP. As soon as Bossman left my office, I sent an email to my friend Lori from HR, who was in charge of replying to candidates. I also told her the story and asked her to keep me informed if there's any development with the whole Karen applies to Cool Company thing. A few hours later, I get an email from Lori. Turns out she copied me to her official reply to Karen. It read, Dear Karen, thank you for your interest in working for Cool Company. After careful consideration, we regret to inform you that, in our opinion, your responsibilities and your opinions are not worth that much. I brought Lori a big chocolate cookie the next day. Thank you all for reading and have a great day, and remember, don't let Karens ruin your sense of self-worth. Hey OP, that was a delicious Uno reverse card if I've ever seen one. Nothing feels better than getting back at an entitled Karen, especially one that makes your life a living heck. I'm glad you're finally getting paid what you're worth, and I wish you good luck in the future in your new position. Well, this is Reddit 9 to 5, and that was Malicious Compliance. If you like this content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have a good story of malicious compliance, please leave it down in the comments down below, and I may just share it in my next video. See you later.